Aren't these just the greatest events? So this is the 1-year anniversary to the exact day that I came to my first political event. Right here at AmFest, sat right over there, and I can't believe I went from being in the audience for my first political event to now being on the main stage. It's kind of wild. And it was a lot of fun. Did you guys have fun the last year? Yeah? This is definitely a celebration time for us. But look, I grew up driving race cars. I'm now able to tell my dad, you were right all along. Steak, potatoes, Fox News. And so as an athlete, generally my interest was in racing and sports and performance and my body and health. So over the last couple of years, I would say especially last year, my real interest in all of the things going on and having some kind of influence from the political standpoint had to do with health, had to do with, look, I'm a very fortunate human being. I have a lot of luxuries in life, but when I think about the food that gets put on the table, the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, I think I can't run from that anymore. I think my food, right? Plant a garden. Well, you can't run from the chemtrails in the skies that land on your food. How about the fact that they're putting vaccines in food like lettuce and tomatoes? What happens when they stop telling you they're doing that? So these are the things that I got very passionate about. And then here comes December of last year, and we just heard someone mention how important one person can be in making a difference. Last night, I saw a sweet lady named Kelsey, who was the one that sent me a direct message on behalf of Turning Point to come to the event, which was paired then with my sister saying, hey, have you guys seen have you seen the great speakers that are in town to speak at AmFest? And I was like, hang on a second. I got a DM from them. So I reached out and saw her last night, and she was like blown away. She was like, one person, it's amazing what can make a difference. And you'll hear how wild this story is and where I ended up in the end of this whole last year, which is such a crazy experience that was so memorable. But it started with just one person reaching out and making a difference. And can we just stop for a second and give a hand to Charlie Kirk and the amazing people that he has to organize it, as well as Charlie himself. Such a driven human being. Hard to believe he's 31 years old. That just, is so impressive. I'm going to say it makes me feel bad, but it's so impressive what he's been able to build. So anyway, thank you so much, Charlie, and thank you to all these people, and thank you to Kelsey for reaching out to me, because it brought me here last year. So exactly 1 year ago today, I sat in this audience at my first political event and one of the most impactful speakers, as I'm sure that you guys would probably agree, was Tucker. Yeah. Were you guys here last night? Yeah. Isn't that so fun when he gets so riled up? He's like, man, I'm just getting started up here. And I think he's telling the truth. I really think that he gets brought up by all the energy, which is something that I'm going to mention about in my whole story, and hopefully it will inspire your own. But Tucker talked about truth, and that truth is your superpower. And I really, really believe that. But I believe even more than that. I think truth carries a frequency. I think that when you speak your truth, people can feel that. We're like living in this time where we don't know what's true and what's not. Do we believe the propaganda movies? Do we believe the news? I mean, thank God for Donald Trump for telling us that there was fake news out there. Do we believe the drug companies? Do we believe in our doctors? Do we believe in any of this stuff? And the only way that you can ever really get to the point of knowing what's true is that we as human beings start turning inward and start feeling what is being said and how that lands in the body. Like, let me give you an example. Like, I always have silly examples for how I learn these things. So music, you hear a song and it just hits, right? And it hits for decades. It's like you can feel it. Now, I feel like there's a frequency in the truth of the song being sung and the person that wrote it and the emotion that they felt, and it's landing with you. So I think that also happens with vulnerability. I think vulnerability also lands in that frequency range of truth. And, I think the best definition of vulnerability is where someone is not sure they're ready to say it, but they do, right? Because you need to. So I think that for me, all this political stuff was like, oh, how's this gonna go? It's true, say it. So my sister and I came to the event. I posted some pictures after the event, and I said something along the lines of, America Fest, Am Fest, I love this country, seems like the place to be. And the backlash was just wildly shocking to me. Don't you guys find it amazing that you can say, I love this country, and it means you're Republican? That you can wear an American flag, and it means you're Republican? Why aren't these things American? And the work isn't done until that's true. Look, I've lived in other countries, and America is amazing. I lived in England for 3 years while I was racing and came back and immediately got an American flag tattoo on my back. Merged with a checkered flag. It's not really very clear, it's a little blurry, but, and as I get older it gets worse, but the memory's there, guys. And I'm sure the pictures are on the internet too. But that's how much I love this country. So when I made this post and had people freak out about it, honestly, it just pissed me off. And it lit a real fire, which then led to one of the funnest years I've ever had. So Tucker, I said I loved his speech. He spoke about truth. Well, I met him backstage finally, and that quickly led to me going and doing his podcast in Florida a few weeks later. That then led to me coming back and Charlie reaching out and saying, hey, I'd love for you to come on the show. So then I went on Charlie's show, and then I made another post and I was like, I guess I'm into politics. So another thing that I think is really true about what happens when you tell the truth is it accelerates your path. Like, what's meant for you also gives you energy. So the path lights up for you, and then it also, because you're in alignment, it gives you energy. Think about all the things that you do that you love doing. You lose track of time, you lose track of hunger. Maybe I don't, but some people probably do. But you lose track of everything because you get self-sustaining energy. So now I'm going to tell you about where that proved to be so true. So one of the other people that I met as a result of AmFest was Tulsi Gabbard. She spoke, and I reached out, right? Isn't she just a badass? Proud to call her a friend now. I reached out afterwards and I just sent her a DM and I just said, wow, you're so impressive. I'm so cheering for you. And she said right away back, she was a fan. So we became friends. I interviewed her, and then fast forward a few more months, she invited me to moderate for her and Bobby in Las Vegas at a Reclaim America tour stop. I've never moderated anything. So I was like, okay. Because look, there is a very, very fine line that's almost indistinguishable. Maybe there isn't one between fear and excitement. Like, take a roller coaster, for instance. Is that exciting or is that scary? Right? So I was a little scared to do it, but I also was excited to do it. So I never let fear win in those moments. And it was actually after my racing career that I realized that it's in those really challenging moments where I have to like push myself that I actually come alive. Because so many people, if they're unhappy, it's not because they're bored. It's not because they truly are unhappy. They're just not doing enough of what lights them up. And sometimes it's challenge, and I've realized that challenge is mine. So I went and moderated for Bobby and Tulsi, and it was such a great experience. And how I mentioned this path, like it goes very quickly. A couple weeks later, I was then asked to moderate for J.D. Vance, all by myself in North Carolina. And again, I was like, wow, I've moderated one time now. But I said yes. He's an awesome human being. We have an insanely good VP, guys. Usha's wife was there. This administration's lit. And so I did that. And I also did some Women for Trump events with Laura Trump. I also then was asked by Tulsi, fast forward all the way to the end, and she said, would you be willing to tour for a few days all the way up until the election with me? And I was like, yeah. She's like, we're going to do some Trump Force One and some Trump rallies. I was like, yeah. So flew to Atlanta, started the journey from there, and was able to do a few Trump rallies, which are cool. Did you guys go to Trump rallies? Yeah? They're a thing. There's a lot of energy at those. I'm pretty sure he picks the playlist too, because I'll tell you why in a second. So there's this thing I said about when you're doing what's meant for you, it gives you energy. And my example, again, a silly example that I use to articulate that is, so I started a podcast about 5 years ago, and interviewing is way harder than being interviewed, because when you're being interviewed, you're only asked questions that you have the answers to. But when you're interviewing, you want to be an expert on them. You want to ask insightful questions. You don't want to ask silly questions. You want to get something new out of them. And so you really need to think, and you also have to get to the points that will make a great interview. So I had 3 interviews lined up, and they were with a doctor and a big entrepreneur, and they were challenging interviews. Well, I got to the end of this day after basically 6 hours of being on, and I was like, I was so excited. I had so much energy. I remember I was by myself. I was living in Malibu at the time. And I was like, what do I do with myself? And I went down to the beach, and I brought the dogs, and I poured a glass of wine. And I was like so energized by these last 6 hours that I had. So the lesson is it's not about the amount of time it takes to do something. It's what you're doing. So on the other side of it, I could go do a 1-hour autograph session at God knows what when I was racing and be totally drained because it's just not stimulating. It's not for me. So what is meant for you will give you energy, and what's not meant for you will steal it. And I can tell you that probably the best example of someone that is showing you what happens when you're doing what's meant for you is President Trump. So as I said, I was excited. I got to ride on Trump Force One a couple of times, and on the last flight home from the very last rally, so the last day, which we know he didn't take a day off, right? And we know who did take a day off, Carmela. It didn't help either, did it? She still didn't have answers for anything. And so he didn't take any days off, but that very last day, he did 4 rallies. And for those of you who's been to a rally, you know that he talks for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And not only that, but he's traveling to different states, different cities. So I was with him amongst some other people. Sage, who was coming up after me, she was along for the ride as well, and of course Tulsi. And so the last rally starts at about midnight in Grand Rapids. Finishes about 2. Get on Trump Force One. And President Trump is so energized. He has the music at 11. It's so loud. He is playing DJ. He's cutting and jiving with everyone. I was lucky enough to get to sit next to him for like almost 2 hours of that flight back to Florida. And, you know, there's one, I did say the fear and excitement thing. There was one story that I'm not sure that I played it right. So we're sitting on the plane and there's some conversation about my handshake. I have a good handshake. My dad always taught me to shake like you mean it from when I was a young kid in racing. In fact, a lot of articles about me started off with like, oh, Danica, wow, Danica Patrick, race car driver, but her handshake almost broke my hand. So President Trump says, shake my hand as hard as you can. And I was like, I don't think this is a good idea. And everybody looking around and they looked at me and they're like, you're not gonna do it? And he had just gotten done showing me his hand and how bruised it was from how many handshakes he had done. And I was like, this seems like a terrible idea. And I did it. And I did shake as hard as I could. And I didn't get invited to Mar-a-Lago for election night. So I either didn't shake hard enough or I shook too hard. And something tells me I didn't shake hard enough because I feel like he can handle strong women. So anyway, we land at 5:45 in the morning. Everybody's exhausted. He's still going, and I think the legend has it he stayed up for about 3 days. So look, he has insane amounts of energy, and it's true, I didn't see him drink any water. He did, however, say, hey, there's this special drink, ginger drink. Do you want one? And I was like, sure. So they brought ginger ale out. So I guess he stayed fueled on ginger ale. But he has this insane energy and insane like humor. And look, it's truly clear that he is doing what is meant for him. And it makes me so excited for these next 4 years. And look, I think if we play it right, this could be 12. Probably with the help of Charlie Kirk, because he seems to really have his hands. I think he's been in Florida since until about this event started. So I'm excited about Bobby and Tulsi and disclosures and food improving, medical improving. There's just so many things that I think are going to improve, and I think we are truly entering the golden age. And I'm what a time to be alive. Like, I actually said that when COVID happened. I was like, what a time to be alive. The amount of stuff that we've seen and the amount of exposure that we've seen has landed where we are. And I think we've heard a few talk about it, but if you would have been elected that second time right away, we wouldn't be having the scenario that we have now, where we're gonna get so many things done. Very exciting. I know I'm going on and I need to wrap up. One thing I wanna say is how important I believe that it is that there's a push for this, but family. I'm where I am today because my mom, my dad, my sister, and the nuclear family is something that's been, they've tried to tear apart over the last good few years, and we're not having it, right? We're not having it, where rights are taken away from parents, from children that that should not be making those decisions. And look, the more that we can get back to, I mean, if we could get to extended family community living, great, because this is what culture used to do. But now it's these separated families at a distance, and so the least we can do is keep the nuclear family together. So I just want to say how grateful I am for my family and how grateful I am that we have an administration that believes that family and parents and their children are important. One of the things that a lot of people have said to me since, well, actually during the campaigning as well as after, is they said, thank you, they literally, they whisper, they go, thank you so much for what you've been doing, which I know what they mean. And my reply is, of course, thank you, but they tell me how brave I've been. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't feel brave. I don't feel like anything I've said or done has made me brave. All I did was believe in something enough. And that's all you have to do, is believe in something enough. So don't forget that your truth leads to your calling, and your calling leads to the energy that gets brought up within you so that you can go ahead and make an impact. And then that impact that you make becomes your legacy. Thank you.